Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Lady Landlords podcast. I am your host, Becky Nova, the founder of Lady Landlords. And today we have Devon Johnson joining us from Wealth Cap Turnkey Properties. Devon, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
Hey, Becky, I am great. Super excited to be here with you. If anybody's watching the video and they see my screen behind me, we also have a podcast called Portfolio Builders. And I'm just really happy to share with you today on behalf of Wealth Cap, what we do. And hopefully I can educate your audience on some stuff that's valuable.
Yes, I think that turnkey properties are just such a unthought of sometimes investment for real estate investors, that we're always looking for like this deal. We always feel like we have to like scour different MLS, different sites trying to find the right property, when really Wealth Cap has properties just sitting there that are great opportunities and people do not know about them. So I'm hoping we can kind of explain how that process works today and help make sure that the lady landlords understand what you offer and kind of how that works. So first question for you today is, I would love for you just to introduce yourself, who you as a person are, Devon, and how you kind of got here today.
Yeah, totally. So I live in Nashville. That's where our, office is headquartered. I moved here, almost 2 years ago. Before I lived in Nashville, I was a real estate agent in Branson, Missouri, and I was in that business for probably 8 years. Before real estate, I was in retail. I've done lots of other things. I'd always been an entrepreneur, but I got started in real estate, I guess about 8 years ago, after I'd sold a retail business. I had a chunk of cash and wasn't really sure, who am I? What am I doing with my life? Total existential crisis, but I had a chunk of money. So I decided to buy a house and rehab it and flip it while I was living in it. I bought it with the intention of selling it. It was my primary residence. And that's when I fell in love with real estate. And I decided okay, I think I'm going to get my real estate license. So I started working as a real estate agent. I knew nothing about it, I didn't know anybody who really had any experience in that industry. And I just started pounding the pavement and learning by crashing and burning a lot. With the house I rehabbed by myself with my own two hands took me forever. And, just working as a real estate agent. Because some people, if you are a licensed agent, that real estate school, licensing school, really teaches you how to not go to jail. And that's about it. It doesn't really teach you anything about the business of real estate. So
and definitely not real estate investing. I feel like you hear people all the time say, oh, maybe I should go become like a real estate agent so that way I'll be better at investing. And I'm like, no. I have no intention. I will never be an agent. I have no interest in doing that. And so I'm really happy to hear that you're saying that you don't get these topics are not covered. That's just not what real estate agents are taught about in their licensing classes. So
they don't know. And even a lot of agents that they're super active working with owner occupants all day long, they still don't know investment property. I just kind of found out after okay, so I finished rehabbing that house. I had my real estate license. I was starting to build that business. I ended up moving out of that house and turned it into a rental. So I kind of became an accidental landlord, like a lot of people do. I moved in, I was seeing somebody that didn't work out, and moved in with him, rented out my house. So I started off as a landlord, and I saw just kind of okay, I bought that house for about 120. I put 25 into it over a course of 18 months because it took me forever because I was doing it myself. So I wouldn't say that I saved money. If you factor in the cost of my time for that 18 months.
I have to ask too, and I know this was so not our topic today, so I don't want to dive down too far, but what did you do to learn how to do that rehab by yourself? What was the best tip you can give some of our ladies out there that are I don't even know if I need a hammer or a drill.
Oh my gosh.
To even get started. What did you do, just briefly, to be able to do that by yourself rather than having to hire out?
YouTube, to be honest.
Me too. I have a feeling you would say that.
Yeah. And I bought a house that was not really in bad shape. It was just,
Okay.
it was ugly. So everything was cosmetic. I wasn't taking on like major rehab. It was just, it was blush and mascara,
Gotcha.
and that was it.
Okay.
And that part, like I kind of had an eye for, but the execution, YouTube, totally.
Gotcha.
And I did have
Okay.
some things blow up in my face that I had to hire a professional to come in behind me and fix it. And, like it didn't go perfect.
Yeah. Of course. Nothing ever does.
Yeah. But through that experience, I saw basically like the power of investment. I saw how much I could get in rent, what I bought the house for, what I had to put into it. And I started my real estate career in a market that was mostly second homes, like vacation homes. So there was a lot of Airbnb investment type property in that area. And I just started to notice as I picked up investor clients that, for one, they were repeats. They would buy multiple times. So I wasn't constantly looking for new clients. They were less emotional than when I worked with owner occupants. So I identified like, oh my gosh, these are easier people to work with. And I fell in love with that as a real estate agent. And that kind of fueled me to then start a property management company, learned a ton about that business, sold that business for a dime on the dollar because I don't want to do that anymore. But I learned a ton. So that's where I got started. I ended up moving to Nashville about 2 years ago, walked away from my real estate business. I was done. I got a sign from God to move to Nashville. So I picked up, left, moved here with no idea what I was doing with my life.
Oh.
And I ended up getting hired for a sales position at one of our other companies.
Okay.
WealthCap was a baby at that time. WealthCap was not hiring. I didn't know WealthCap existed. So Taylor, who you had on your show last week.
Yes. For anyone that listens to Lady Landlord's podcast, or if you're new here, make sure to go back, listen to 2 weeks ago's episode with Taylor Welsh from WealthCap. And then that'll also kind of give you the larger overview of his story as we kind of go into Devon's today.
Yeah. So Taylor, who owns WealthCap along with Chris, they have several other businesses, and I wanted a life change. I thought I wanted out of real estate. So they hired me for one of their other companies. I showed up. And after they kind of started to get to know me a little bit, my background and my history, it was like, hey, we just started this real estate portfolio. Can we take you over to that company? And it was like, it was meant to be. It was destiny,
Yeah.
So I showed up and then just really kind of helped basically build out the system for servicing clients that we have today. But yeah, it was kind of a freak accident. I just like moved across the country. Oh, and WealthCap happened to have they were buying vacation rentals in the small town in Missouri that I had just left. No. Yeah.
You should have been like, hey, there's this great property right here, but you're going to have to pay a fortune to get it, but it's going to be totally worth it, and give them your old address. So
I know. So that was like, that's how I knew that this is where I was meant to be when Taylor told me like, hey, we just started this real estate portfolio. We're buying vacation rentals in Branson, Missouri. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Because
that was not a name that comes up often at all. So that was totally meant to be. That's so cool that, and it's interesting because I feel like, just from kind of that existential kind of purpose, I feel like we're all sitting there being like, I want to be where I'm supposed to be like today. I don't want to go through the different steps. I don't want to have to go through these different trials and errors. Like, I just want to get to where I want to be, right? We all want to have our portfolios built. We all want to have that financial freedom where we can go and kind of live life in the way that we want. But sometimes we have to go through the different steps and take that time and be patient to then have the universe kind of put us in the right place at the right time. And that sounds exactly where you were. If you didn't rehab that house on your own, if you didn't move in with that guy that ended up not working out, that you became that accidental landlord, if you didn't have that real estate experience from those types of things, you might not end up in the position that you are now. Totally. And you never knew that there was like kind of a greater reason that you had gone through those different things and then end up in Nashville. So that's so cool. So I'm so happy that you're in like that right place. So now that you're at WealthCap, what is WealthCap?
Okay. So WealthCap Holdings, we are primarily a portfolio builder, and we're also a turnkey provider. So the main thing that we do is build the portfolio for our owners. And essentially we buy some extra inventory, houses that meet our buy box, they meet our criteria. Like these are the types of houses that we would want to hold on to. We buy some extra, if you will, if it fits our criteria, and we sell them as turnkey investments to individuals that want to invest in real estate, but are either they don't have the time, desire, know-how to, buy, fix, flip, and do all that by themselves. So, that's one thing that's like pretty different, I think, about us versus some of the other turnkey providers I've seen out there is like the properties that we sell to investors. That is not our main thing. That's like the frosting on our cupcake.
Okay. Which is everybody's favorite, right?
Yeah, it is. It is everybody's favorite. So we're active in 3 main markets: Kansas City, Missouri, Birmingham, Alabama, and Charlotte, North Carolina. We have an acquisitions team. We have a rehab team. We've got boots on the ground. We've got property management partners in all of our markets. And essentially, our team is scouring all day, every day, looking for the right deals, figuring out how to fix those properties to make sure that they're going to rent out really well, focusing on areas that are great for rental property, which, like I mentioned, we're in Nashville, our office is here, but we don't do real estate here because the numbers do not work in this market. So, and I know
you want to come to Westchester, New York?
No, no.
Come on up to New York. I'm sure you'll find a ton of properties just sitting around waiting for you. So,
but there's a lot of markets where rentals are hard. The cap rates aren't right. You can't get enough rent. Prices are too high. Taxes are too high, especially right now with basically the whole nation in kind of a bull market. It can be really hard for even experienced investors to buy deals. But we've got a lot of manpower behind our machine looking for the right deals in the right places that make good investment properties where the investor is going to get a really good return, like 10 to 15% cash on cash, without having to swing a hammer, lay tile, and do all that work by themselves. Because most people, they really don't have the time if they've got a job.
No, and which most of us do.
Yeah.
So a couple questions. First one. So is that normally the people that you find are attracted to Wealth Cap are the people that want to invest, kind of have the money, but don't have the time or aren't planning on really aren't planning on managing their own properties? Those are the people that are kind of coming to you that are saying, because Wealth Cap is really doing kind of that legwork for them. And then they could be the owner and kind of sit back. So it sounds like really that passive income that we hear about in real estate investing, that a lot of investors, I feel like, get into real estate investing because we all hear it's like mailbox money and like passive income, right? But then we all hear about that whole phone call at midnight about the clogged toilet and the light bulb changes and this problem, that problem, that problem. It really sounds like then the people that are coming to you are the people that are saying, I want to be a real estate investor, but I don't want to deal with those phone calls. I want someone to be able to do the legwork for me. So is that kind of accurate for the people that most find you and utilize their services?
Yeah, I would say 1,000%. Like real estate investing can be passive, but not if you're fixing and flipping and you're your own property manager. That is not passive real estate investing.
No,
it's not. It's very active.
Yes, it is.
Extremely active real estate investing. So yeah, most of the clients that we work with, they're people that want passive income, or, I've got quite a few investors that are repeat clients that they may fix and flip in their own backyard, but they want to expand into other markets. And it's really hard to fix and flip or even fix and hold, from a distance. If it's not in your backyard, how can you actually oversee a rehab? Like, I'm thinking of a guy that he lives in Charlotte, which is one of our markets. He's not interested in buying Charlotte properties through us, but he loves Birmingham. And he's not going to travel from Charlotte to Birmingham, every other week to do a rehab. So by working with us, he's got enough going on in his backyard. So he's been able to like grow and expand his portfolio into another market to get himself diversified and, without having to find the deals, do the work and all that by himself.
And then it sounds like also you're that one-stop shop. Once again, you're not just finding the properties, then
Mhm.
you're actually rehabbing the properties, you're placing the tenants in the properties, you have the property manager. So you really have like that whole like vertical integration here where someone can come to you and say, hey, I want to buy that rental property, and you can help them from beginning to end, right?
Yeah, 100%. We've worked with real estate investors who have never bought anything. Like they've never bought a primary. They don't know anything about anything. And we've also worked with a lot of really experienced investors that are doing, sophisticated transactions where they're using their retirement accounts and 1031s and, large portfolio purchases, like basically everything in between. We're able to help whether somebody's brand new or they're experienced, and they don't have to figure out all the steps, but they're also not obligated. Let's say somebody comes our way and they happen to live in Birmingham and they want to manage their own property. They're just looking for something they don't have to flip. Like that's totally fine. They're not, nobody's obligated to, have it totally done for you if they don't want to.
Exactly. But you have all those services there that you're able to provide, you're able to connect them with the right lender, sometimes the right people that they'll need in that area, because you really are then that local expert in these markets. So you can say it's kind of we can kind of pick like that on or off switch, right? So like, yes, I'll take the rehab. No, I don't need the property manager. Yes, I need like the funding. So you can kind of pick and choose what you want to fit each individual investor's needs and wants, really.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
The only thing that we don't switch off is like the rehab part. We sell the houses once they're completed. And basically, okay, so let's say we identify a deal in Birmingham and house is, needs some work. The ARV is going to be, let's say 195. It's going to rent out for 1650. We do all the numbers, the due diligence, make sure everything's going to work. We get started on working on the property. We sell it at the ARV. Or maybe a little bit below. If something pops up in the rehab, that is an expense that basically we just have to eat. So we're selling that finished product. I've had a few people ask me like, hey, would you just like find me a deal and hand it over to me? And that's not really part of our business model.
But
that
defeats the whole kind of like turnkey part, right? That's kind of skipping that part of the business. So
but if someone needs help with financing, we've got that, the property management at the end. We've basically got everything in the middle, figured out for them. Got
it. So then, okay, let's define some other terms within this. So let's just start with turnkey. Like how turnkey are we really talking here?
It's totally turnkey. So there's a couple variables that can come into play. So occasionally we have houses that are 100% complete. There's a tenant in place and it's ready to go. I would call that like 100% turnkey. There's somebody
like 110% turnkey. Like that's above and beyond. Yeah.
There's somebody in it paying right now. More often than not, those are houses that are actually from our portfolio that we're releasing out. We're rebalancing. We've got too many houses in this one neighborhood, so we're going to sell a couple off. So those happen occasionally. More often than not, the way that it happens is we have houses that are in rehab that we offer up to our investors, and we're like, hey, basically, this is what's coming down the pipeline. This is what the price is going to be. We're working on it right now. Here's the rent range, all the numbers, all the due diligence. We've done an inspection on it. We know what needs to be fixed. We've got a list of what is being fixed. So more often than not, investors are like, they're putting a house under contract while we're still working on it, but we don't close until the work is done. And once the work is done, then the property manager is going to go over, they're going to do a walkthrough. We're going to get professional marketing pictures. They're going to start looking for a tenant. There may or may not be a tenant moved in before we get to closing. But every piece of the process is in motion. Like we help facilitate that for and with our investors. So I've seen some people out there that they try to like buy a house in another market right off the MLS, and then they try to hire somebody to manage the property, like trying to piece the things together, and it may or may not work that well.
Mhm.
Or, people that are just selling like flipped houses as investments. But if you're still like kind of hunting for a property manager and piecing those things together, it can be really scary if you're like living in another state.
Yeah, and
you know.
that kind of like what exactly is like done kind of comes into play. Years
Mhm.
ago, actually, my first duplex that I bought here in New York was by a flipper, if you will. It was probably
Mhm.
his first flip. It was his first flip. It was my first purchase. We both learned a lot, right? Like I'll definitely
Right.
say that. But there were certain things that, yes, they were still finishing the house when I ended up seeing it, when we put in our offer and everything like that. And yes, it was supposed to be done by close. But then like there were still things that we were like, well, how are you going to finish this? Like, how are you going to finish this? And it ended up not necessarily being done. There were still things that like when we then bought it, like I would not call that turnkey, because when we
Right.
moved in, there were still projects we had to finish. They basically were like, okay, cool, we have an accepted offer, we can stop, bye bye, like we are now done here. It really wasn't a complete a complete flip in that sense. And it sounds
Yeah.
like that's something that you guys really kind of go to that finish line rather than just saying, cool, someone agreed to pay us, we're going to stop here.
No, it needs to be move-in ready. Like it needs to be move-in ready. So like
Yeah.
our process doesn't look any different whether we're keeping the house or it's going out to our investor list. And that starts in the very beginning, from how we analyze what we're going to buy to the rehab that we're going to do. More often than not, we don't decide, is a particular house going to be for us, for our portfolio, or is it
Yeah.
going to go to an investor? That's not decided until we've started working on it. We don't
Right.
pick out some to sell and some to keep. So our process with the rehab means move-in ready. Now, does that mean like there's never going to be any issue ever? Like, no, because even
No.
brand new construction is going to have things, a loose doorknob, a light that doesn't work, or, stuff like that is going to happen. But yeah, all the rehab gets completed. And then if investors want to, they're more than welcome to order another independent inspection. We do an inspection. We have a full scope of work. Our contractor checks off on it. Our project manager checks off on it. And then the inspector also goes back out to make sure that the critical red line items have been taken care of. Some investors can look at all of that data and due diligence and the 8,000 photos and feel really good about it. Others want to have another independent inspection done, which they're totally welcome to do. So
That's great.
they can do another independent inspection. And if there's anything that pops up on that they want to chat about, rather than like what happened to you when you moved into your place,
Yeah.
then we can negotiate and look at like some of these things that really might need to be fixed before it's truly move-in ready.
And that's great that then they can have that independent person kind of come in. So that way
Mhm.
they're feeling like comfortable with that. And once again, it's nice that you guys already have that and will supply the investor with those documents and say, hey, look, this was what our guy found. This is what we're working on. This is our punch list of items that need to be complete. But hey, you want to send somebody to take a look at it too? We're open to that as well. I think it's really cool too that because you hear this all the time with like flips, right? With like the people that are actually just solely doing the flips and then selling them. A lot of times you'll have investors that'll go look at it and be like, yeah, but it was like really kind of shoddy work. It was done like kind of on the cheap. What I like is that you guys are actually doing these flips to really hold on in your own internal portfolio. So
Mhm.
you clearly are going to do them to a quality that makes sense because it's your own property. Then if you so choose and decide, okay, well, we have too many in this neighborhood, we need to kind of balance out our portfolio. That's when it kind of gets released, which means that it's not like, oh, well, it's just going to somebody else, so we can
Mhm.
just do whatever we want with it. Like you're still doing the work as if this is your own property, your own portfolio. And that really just says a lot about if you're going to treat your investors the same way that you're treating your own properties. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
And like, okay, so one of the long-standing running jokes around here is, you'll have to ask Taylor next time you talk to him about the red sink.
Okay.
There was a house that rehab was done. We got the professional pictures back. One of my investors had it. I'm looking at the professional photos and I was like, yo, I I was like, are we really like the sink, man? And, so they made fun of me, and they still do, ongoing, about how Devon didn't like the kitchen and we had to go back in, but like, I just didn't feel like it was quite up to the standard of something that I would want to buy, that we would want to hold on to. And they agreed. They just like making fun of me about it. But
Was there
yeah,
like an avocado stove and like the brown refrigerator like next to this? Like I'm picturing like that very like 1970s
it,
kind
it,
of.
it wasn't quite that bad, but there was a little bit of like wallpaper left on like like a pony wall,
Okay.
and it had a red pattern in it, and the sink was red. So
We're
like
trying to coordinate. Okay.
yeah. And I was like, we can't, like, I'm sorry. I won't, I won't be able to sleep at night. So,
Yeah.
like we want to make sure that the product that we put out there does live up to our standard.
Mhm.
As do I, and
Yeah.
I went to bat over that red sink with
Yes,
the
you did.
guys, and they weren't happy about it, but I buy from us too,
I know, I've seen. I love that
so
you're like, you really like put your money where your mouth is when not only
yeah,
were you an investor previously with your own properties back in Missouri, but you actually have bought from your own company. That's
yeah.
really pretty cool.
I continue to do so. And, you bet
Yeah.
your ass if I picked a house that, I looked at it and I was like, this isn't quite up to our standards, that we're
Yeah.
going to negotiate that. Cause
And that's the lens you look at everything through. That's great.
yeah, 100%. It's also like, I feel like it's job security. If I just keep giving my checks back, job security for me. And like, they know I'm coming back tomorrow, cause I just gave you all my money back.
That's so funny. One of my first tenants, actually our first two tenants were both bartenders. And it was my favorite bar that I go to every single Friday in Yonkers. And when I would go down there, our tenant, the bartender, would always gonna say, he's like, Becky, like I really appreciate it. Like you always like tip like really well. And I was just like, well, I just want to make sure that I get my money back on the first of the month. I was like, this is just kind of rent security. Like it's just this, it's the same money just being passed around. So, but we always kind of laughed at that too, right? It's that security that we want to ensure in our businesses.
yeah.
So I'm glad you can relate to that.
I mean, I think it says a lot. If you were talking to like a financial planner or something, I don't want to talk to a financial planner that makes 40K a year. You know what I'm saying? Like,
No,
uh,
no, I do not. I'm gonna have to like extract that like segment from there because that is great advice. Yes.
but that's exactly what, like, if you're looking at buying real estate to invest in, whatever it is, whether it's turnkey, it's in your backyard, you're looking in the MLS, like, who are you getting advice from?
Yeah.
I would, if you have a realtor helping you, not that realtors are bad, I still am one, but I would ask them, like, do you have any investment property? And if the answer is no, that may not be the right agent for you.
Yeah.
Or if you're talking to a turnkey provider and the person that's trying to help guide you through which property to choose, if they don't
Yep.
also own investment property, if they wouldn't buy the house that they're telling you about, if they don't buy from their own company, then, like, I don't know, that would give me,
That should be red flag, right? That should
that would
definitely
give
red
me
flag being.
pause.
No, I
And
100% agree. I think that people need to kind of put their money where their mouth is, to stand up for kind of what they believe in, and it really kind of shows like that integration, that like I'm a part of this. It's not just my 9 to 5 job that I sell investment properties. This is what like I eat, sleep, and breathe. This is a part of who I am because I'm also an investor, and therefore I can help you because it's something that I'm doing.
yeah, exactly. And technically we are our biggest buyer.
Yeah,
Our portfolio is our biggest buyer. And the individual investors are secondary. So
yeah,
it's like, if you wouldn't eat your own dog food, if you will, like,
yeah.
I don't know, that would make me nervous. But yeah, I think it's important for people to know that if they choose to talk to me and if they have any questions, it's like, yeah, I'm doing this with you. So
Exactly.
I can share my personal experiences. I can share with you things that have gone awesome, things that have gone not awesome. What I think, and which, what I think is not investment advice. I'm not an accountant or an attorney or, a financial planner, but from somebody who's like doing it with you, I can share my personal experience.
Yeah. And honestly, like you are a rather open book, which is what I've always loved about you. And for our lady landlords that are listening in today, Devon was actually one of like the OG like lady landlords. Like Devon and I met over a year ago now when I just kind of started
Mhm.
because she was like, wait, like women empowerment, real estate, like I want to be a part of this. So
Totally.
like that's where Devon and I have really kind of built our relationship like over this past year because I know that I can reach out to Devon, even if it's not necessarily for like a turnkey property. I know I can also reach out to her for different resources. I know I can reach out to her and ask about properties and really get like an answer. I don't feel like I'm
Mhm.
being sold to. I feel like someone is sitting here being like, well, let's look at your portfolio. Let's see what you need. Let's see what's going to fit. And you give it to people straight. And I absolutely love that about you because I really truly feel that you want to see people win and you
Yeah.
definitely want to see women win. So
Oh, I do.
yeah.
I do. Women of the world, take control of your finances. And like,
Yes.
some of that is just like me. Some of that is just me.
Yeah.
I'm definitely a feminist, but I grew up in a house where like money was tight. I was raised by a single mom and it was kind of an unhappy, unstable house. And as a very little person, I thought, like I'm not going to live like that.
Yeah.
I didn't, just start batting them up right out of the park, right out of the gate. It's taken me a long time to kind of build myself up to where I can do this.
Mhm.
But it's super important, I think, for women to like be able to take care of themselves more. Most investors are men in real estate, stocks, everything. Most of them are
Mhm.
men. But I have read so many studies that have shown that women actually make better investors. We make better
Yes,
investment
we do.
decisions. We just don't get in the freaking game.
Yeah. Well,
We just
that's why
don't.
there are women like you and I changing that, right?
Yeah. Hopefully, like screaming from the rooftops.
Yeah.
um, like women tend to be more risk adverse. It takes us a longer time to make a decision. We're going to ask a lot of freaking questions. It drives people crazy. I don't care. Right now, I'm planning a trip. In 2 weeks, I'm going to Peru. I have emailed these resorts probably 400 times asking my questions, which I know they're not very happy about, but like that's how women are when we do anything.
We need
With
our information. We need our
Yeah.
answers. We need an understanding of it. We need to do
Mm-hmm.
our due diligence. And there is nothing wrong with that, right?
Mm-mm.
There's nothing wrong. Ask our questions, get our answers so that way we can make those comfortable decisions and then we can get in the game. And every
Yeah.
time we do those steps, we feel more confident with the steps that we're taking. And then we can do better deals, bigger deals, and continue to move forward.
Yeah.
So
I
I'm
think
glad you said that.
there's a lot of women out there that are like, I think they're too scared to even get started. Or maybe they don't even know what questions to ask. And you have sent some amazing women our way, who've been looking at Turnkey, and you've really been able to help guide them on these are the questions to ask, and they feel comfortable. And a lot of them are first timers. They haven't invested yet. But just by like getting some help and education from somebody like you who's in the game doing the thing, letting them know like it's not that scary if you ask the right questions and just get in the game.
Exactly. No, I totally agree. That is like the most important thing. So that was actually one of the questions that I had for you today too, was what do our ladies need to have prepared when working with a turnkey provider? I come to you for the first time. What should I have thought about? What should I have ready to go?
That's a great question. So I have people from all walks that end up on a call with me, and some of them are far away from actually being ready, and that's perfectly fine.
Love that.
I will tell you the truth. Like, girl, you need a year. And this is what you need to, and this is what you need to work on in the meantime. So in a perfect world, of course, because I love being efficient, it would be ideal if everybody came to me like, hey, I've got 500K cash. I want to buy 3 houses right now in cash. What do you got?
But that's
But
all of us. All of us have that. Devon, come on.
that's not realistic. So it's great if they've already been pre-approved for a loan. If not, that's not a problem. If they don't even know what kind of financing they could qualify for, that's okay. We can help guide them through that, as can you. Like,
Yeah.
most of the women that have come through, if they've come to me from lady landlords, they're pretty well educated on the basics, but it's really not a requirement.
Love that.
But
I love that you meet
realistically,
people, really where they're at. It sounds like that you're willing to
yeah,
listen to them, see where they're at, and put them in the right kind of path.
yeah. If to buy turnkey with wealth cap, the majority of our properties are going to be like, after they've been rehabbed and fixed and all that, the majority of them are going to be like 150K to maybe 225. So realistically, if you can do a conventional loan and put 20% down, you probably need 40 or 50K to make sure that you've got a down payment, a little bit of a buffer, and closing cost.
Yeah.
Don't take your last nickel and invest that. So, but if somebody's not quite there, if they're not quite at that point of liquidity, but they're working towards it and they just want to get themselves prepared, then, get in our group, get some education from us. We've got some trainings and stuff that we can send to help get somebody prepared for when they're like really in the buying position.
Gotcha. Any last kind of tips or anything else that you would like to share about turnkey providers, wealth cap kind of in general that we kind of didn't hit on today?
I think we really covered most of it. Just if somebody out there is like, I really want to invest in real estate, but I live in San Francisco, it doesn't work where I am, I want to get started on this. There are ways to do it. But make sure that you work with somebody that you really trust. I'm happy to chat with anybody that wants to talk with us. If you choose to shop around, like totally on you. I get it. Just like we've been talking through this whole thing, make sure you're really asking the right questions, that you thoroughly understand who you are partnering with. And ideally, like I would get a referral before you buy from a turnkey company, like if you don't know anybody who's doing business with them that will tell you the truth, then I don't know, shop around.
You're right. Like those testimonials that like, hey, who else has like worked with you that can share their experience? Those are always helpful. Always kind of hearing from that third party makes sense to do. And kind of like you said, get in the game, participate, show up, be present, ask the questions that you need to get the answers for you to be able to move forward and start building your portfolio. Devon, thank you so much for joining us today. I will put the link to reach out to Devon for any questions, or if you'd like to join their investors list, I will put that down in the notes, in the show notes. So make sure to head there so you can connect with Devon of WealthCap. So Devon, thank you so much. I appreciate your time today on joining the Lady Landlords podcast.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Becky.
You're welcome. Also, for any of our lady landlords out there, if you are still needing help on how to build your portfolio, feel free to reach out and also join the Lady Landlords Roadmap Mentorship Program. You can find the link also down in the show notes there. Or as always, you can reach out to me in the Lady Landlords Facebook group. Thank you very much. And we will see you all next week for our next episode of the Lady Landlords podcast.